In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a custom MCP server in Python and connect that to an AI agent. This is going to be very beginner friendly, but it's going to illustrate what an MCP server actually is and how you make your own and how you can extend this to do some really cool stuff. Now, excuse the shirt. I don't usually wear a tank top when I'm recording videos, but it is extremely hot here, so please don't get too distracted, and let's get into the video. All right, so first things first, if you don't understand MCP servers yet, I made a video on them that's been doing really well in the past few days, explaining exactly what they are. There's some diagrams. I show you how to connect it to AI code editors, for example, like Cursor. But the quick gist is that an MCP server just provides various tools or resources to something like an AI agent so that it can utilize additional context, or it can call an API, or it can save a note, or connect to a database. It can do things outside of its current abilities. So here I'm going to show you how to make your own MCP server so that you can write your own tools that you provide to AI agents. It can be other AI agents or your own AI agents. It doesn't really matter. And MCP servers are just kind of the new fancy term for essentially how LLMs and AI tools communicate with each other. Okay, so let's get into it here. I'll link this video in the description in case you want more information. Now we're going to be using the MCP Python SDK, which makes this very easy to do. And there are a few setup steps. So we're going to be using UV. So first thing you need to do if you don't have this installed is install UV. This is a package manager that's just significantly better than pip. I'll have a video coming out about this in a few days that we'll talk about it more in depth. But anyways, if you're on Windows, you're going to want to copy this first command into PowerShell. It will install UV for you. And if you're on Mac or Linux, you can copy any of these commands and again, install UV. Now you can install this using PyPy or pip, but I don't recommend that you do that because it's going to make it a lot more complicated later in the video. Okay, beyond that, I am going to suggest that you download Claude Desktop. This is free and it's going to be one of the easiest ways to test our MCP server. So please just download this because I'm going to show you how to add your MCP server to Claude Desktop so you can actually see an LLM interacting with it and using those various tools. Okay, so once we have UV installed, we're just going to follow the instructions here from the README of the MCP Python SDK. And what we need to do is initialize a new UV project. So I'm going to put this on the right-hand side of my screen, and I'm going to open up the code editor that I'll be using for this video, which is PyCharm. Now, you may be wondering, why am I using PyCharm? This really is just the best IDE to be using. It has tons of tools built in, makes it really easy to work with Python code, view the documentation, especially if you're working with things like servers or APIs. It has a built-in network tab, so you can directly test them there, and a ton of other great features. I also do have a long-term partnership with PyCharm where I'm able to give you access to a 3-month free extended trial of their PyCharm Pro subscription. You can get access to that with the details that are in the description. Check it out, see if you like it, and obviously for this video you can use anything that you want, but I do recommend PyCharm. But the first step is to just open some kind of folder in whatever code editor you want to use. Okay, so I'm using PyCharm and I've opened a folder called MCP Server Tutorial. To open that, you typically are going to go to the File menu. You're going to go to Open. You can make a new folder or you can open an existing one. And I suggest you just make a new folder and then open that. Okay, so from here, I'm going to open up my terminal. In my terminal, I'm in the current directory where I want to initialize this project. And because I've already installed UV, and let me just quickly zoom in here so you guys can actually see this, I'm going to type UV init and then dot. When I do the dot, this means initialize a new UV project in the current directory. Okay, so we have UV init dot, so that's kind of what this wanted us to do here. And next we need to install the dependencies, and the dependency is going to be MCP and then CLI. So we're simply going to go here and say UV add MCP CLI. Okay, that's going to install it instantly using UV. And if we look here at our directory, we should see a few files. We have a venv. This is our virtual environment. We have main.py. We have this README. We have all of these things. All right, so that's installed now. The next step here is going to be to open this main.py file. If you don't have the file, again, you can create one. Don't worry about the interpreter. I'm going to fix that here in 1 second. And then we're going to start writing a simple MCP server. We're going to test it, and then we will adapt this to be something a little bit more custom. All right, so to get started here, we can literally just copy the code from the quick start guide here. Again, I'm going to link this GitHub in the description. And you can see here that what we do is we say from mcp.server.fastMCP, we have fastMCP. We create an MCP server. We give this a name. In this case, it's called demo. Then we create a tool, and then we have a resource. I'm going to talk about what these are in 1 second. But this is literally all you need in order to get started with the MCP server. And the next step is to actually install this or use it from some LLM or some AI tool. So again, I literally just copied this from the quick start, but I'm going to show you now how we install this into Claude Desktop so we can start testing it, and then we'll change this to a more custom example. Now look, we have a tool, okay? We have a tool that allows us to add two numbers. Obviously, that's pretty naive. And then we have a greeting, okay? Or a resource, and we can greet someone based on their name. So in order to install this, we can do it manually, or we can use the MCP CLI that we just installed. So I'm going to open up my terminal again, make sure you're in the same directory of your UV project. And what you can type is UV run and then MCP install and then the name of your Python file. And in this case, it's not server.py, it's main.py because that's what I named the file. Okay, so I'm going to go with main.py. Now, when I do that, what it should do is add this configuration to our Claude desktop. I'm going to show you how we get that configuration and then how we check if this is working. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to open up Claude. Now, obviously, that step only works if you have Claude Desktop installed. You don't need to use Claude Desktop, but this is a good demo for this video. So we're going to open this up here. And what we can do if we want to check the configuration is we can go here to the three kind of, bars or the menu. We can go to File and we can go to Settings. I'll have my editor zoom in here so you guys can see this. From Settings, we're going to go to Developer and we're going to go here to Edit Config. Okay, now from Edit Config, it's likely going to open up some directory for you. What you're going to want to do is open up this Claude Desktop configuration file. Okay, so I'm going to open this up just in Sublime Text, but you can open this in anything that you want. And you're going to see that you have some command and then you have some arguments. Now what this is saying is, hey, we're going to use UV, the thing that you just installed. We're going to run it with this MCP CLI, and then we're going to run the command MCP run, and then this server right here. Now, once that's running, within Claude, we should actually be able to see this. However, there's some common errors that can occur that I'm going to show you how to get over. So really, this configuration is added, and we should be able to see the MCP server. But the MCP server should show up right here, and we're not seeing it right now. Now, I ran into a bunch of issues with this when I was testing, and I found a few potential fixes. The first fix is just to shut down Claude Desktop completely, so force quit it from your task manager or your process list, and then reopen it. So let's try that and see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm going to show you the alternative solution. So I just opened my task manager here, and I'm just going to shut down Claude Desktop, okay? So I'm going to end the task, and then I'm just going to wait a second, and I'm going to reopen it, okay? So we're going to reopen Claude. Now we're hoping that once this loads, it's going to spin up our MCP server, and it looks like it actually did. So you see here now that we have a hammer, and then we have, I guess, this kind of like plug here where we can attach something from the MCP. Now that's not going to work right now, but we can go to available MCP tools, and we can see that we have this add tool from the server demo, and it says it adds two numbers. So now what I can do is I can say something like, can you add 1 + 7, and it should go ahead and use this MCP tool, this one right here that's available. Okay, let's see if it does that. You can see that it says running add from demo, and then we're going to say, yes, we will allow this for this chat. It's using the parameter A and B, and then it gets the result, which is 8. Okay, this is a very, very simple demo of using the MCP server, but the point is, if it doesn't work, restart it. Now, if that's still not working for you, another way to fix this is to put the absolute path to where UV is installed. Now, the absolute path for where UV is installed will depend on your operating system and how you installed it, but I'm going to show you how you can find it. So you can go to your terminal and you can type which, if you're on Mac or Linux, and then UV. When you do that, it should show you the location of where this was installed. And then what you can do is put the absolute location to this UV file. Now in my case, I can also type where UV, and notice that it's not showing me where this exists. I can try something like where uv.exe, and it's still not showing it to me. So what I had to do is look up the default installation location, and I found that the location for this was the following. I'm just going to open it up right now. Okay, so again, we'll zoom in here, but the default location on Windows, if you install this with the PowerShell command, is going to be c:/user/ the name of your user. In my case, I called mine user kind of sillily, but this would be like Tim or Joe or like whatever your current user is on Windows, and then /local and then /bin. Inside of here, you have the UV directory. So what you could do if this command wasn't working is you would change the configuration here to be the following. You would put your directory, you would escape these with 2 backslashes because that's just how it works here in Windows. And then you would do //uv.exe. So you're pointing directly to this UV executable so that you can actually use it. Again, same thing on Mac. You put the absolute location to the UV executable file. It won't be .exe. It will probably just be UV or uv.sh or something along those lines. Now, clearly I don't need that because this is working, so I will just leave it as UV. And you could add other servers here as well using the same configuration that you see like this, where essentially what happens is once Claude boots up, it runs this command, runs the server. It's then able to connect to this using the standard input-output protocol. We don't need to talk about that in too much depth, and utilize your tools. Okay, so now that this is working, we are going to shut down Claude again, and we're going to go into our editor, and we're actually going to write a useful MCP server. And to do that, we're quickly going to cover some of the important concepts related to MCP servers that are here on this page. So what we can do with MCP servers is we can expose data through resources. So think of like a GET endpoint, like a HTTP GET endpoint, where you're exposing like a database or some context or a memory or whatever, like just anything that is essentially retrieving data. Okay, that's a resource that you can expose via MCP. Another thing that you can do is provide a tool. Now, a tool is something that typically does something. Maybe it goes and scrapes the web, or it adds a new user, it performs some operation. And again, that's something that, these AI agents like to use a lot and that you can provide with an MCP server. You also can provide a prompt. So this is a reusable template for interacting with LLMs. And I'm going to show you all of those in this video and how they connect with Claude. So you can see for a resource, you do something like @mcp.resource. Okay. For a tool, you do @mcp.tool. And for a prompt, you do @mcp.prompt. You also can connect images and context. I'm not going to show that right now, but that is something that you can do. Okay, cool. So let's get out of that. Let's go back into our editor, and let me show you a real tool that might actually be useful, or at least demonstrates how you write this out. All right, so I just cleared my file here, so we just have some basic code, so we're kind of just starting from scratch. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this AI sticky notes, okay? And the idea is going to be that we're going to allow the AI to kind of take some notes and store that in some external storage. In this case, we'll just use like a notepad file, and this will show us how we can kind of like read and write and get resources and utilize tools. It'll be interesting enough to at least give you like the kind of starting template for building your own MCP. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here and we're going to say import OS, because we're going to use this in 1 second. And we're going to define a variable called notes_file. And we're going to make this equal to just like notes.txt. Okay, now this is going to be where we are storing the notes that the MCP server will actually have access to. Now we're going to make a function. We're just going to say ensure_file. And all this is going to do is just make sure that this file exists before we start trying to use it. So we're going to say if not os.path.exists and then the notes file. You can see my autocomplete is taking over here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say with open notes file w as f. I'll explain this in 1 second. Then I'm going to say f.write, and I'm just going to write an empty line in here, or like an empty string. Okay, you don't really need to do this, but this is what we're going to do. So we're going to say if not os.path.exists. What this is doing is saying, all right, does this file exist? If it does not exist, then we're going to use this fancy Python syntax, which essentially will open up a file for us and make sure there's no errors doing that. This is going to create a new file because we did this in W mode. This means it will create and override any file that currently exists. And then we just write nothing into it just so that we have something happening inside of this with statement. Okay, so we're going to run that before we do any operation on our file, just to make sure the file is indeed there. Now we're going to make an MCP tool. Now to make an MCP tool is super straightforward. All you have to do is type @MCP tool and then make sure you close your parentheses here. And this is what's called a decorator in Python. It's something that essentially modifies a function. You don't need to worry too much about what that means. Then what we can do is we can give the tool a name, and we do that by defining a function with the name of the tool. So in this case, we say define add_note. Okay, and now we've just made a tool called add_note that our LLM or that our AI agent would be able to call. Now for this function, we're going to specify the parameters or the values that the AI agent would pass to it. So for adding a note, we probably have like a message that we want the AI agent to pass. So we can specify as many parameters as we want, but we need to make sure that we specify a type for those parameters so the AI agent knows how to pass them. So we're going to say message and then :string. And then we're also going to specify the return type of this function by using a type hint in Python. So we're going to use a dash and then the greater than sign and then string. Okay, now what this effectively says is, hey, we have this function, we take in some message, this will be given by the LLM or by the AI agent. It's going to return some string, and then inside of here, we can start writing out the actual function. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say ensure file. So we're going to make sure the file does exist. Then we're going to say with open, and same thing, we're going to open the notes file. We're going to open this in A mode, which stands for append mode, which means we're not going to override it, but we're going to write to the end. And then we're going to say f.write, and we're going to write the message plus a new line character. This means we will go down to the next line in the file after we write the message. And then we're just going to return a string that says note saved. Okay, so just give the LLM some output that this actually was successful. Now at this point, this tool is done. If we go back to Claude and we restart it, we'll be able to start using this tool and adding a new note. But there's one more step that you don't want to forget. Now that step is adding what's called a docstring. Okay, and you can see in PyCharm here, it automatically populated it. Again, another advantage of using something like PyCharm. Now a docstring is essentially a comment. So you can see that I've done 3 quotation marks here that you put at the top of a function that describes what the function does, the parameters that it takes, and the return type, or what that return value actually is. Now this is super important because the MCP server will be able to read this and see what this tool actually does and if it should be using it. So sure, you can give it a descriptive name like add note, but if you want to be more specific, you put that in the docstring, and this will really dictate how well your tools work and how often they get called. So I actually have a docstring that I'm just going to copy in here. It doesn't follow this exact format, but that's fine. And you can see that it says append a new note to a sticky note file, arguments message string, this note, the note content to be added, and it says returns a string confirmation message indicating the note was saved. Okay, so now we've documented this tool so that the AI actually knows when to use it. So let's try to test this out now before we move on to the next step. So we're going to open up Claude, and I just want to go back here to new chat. I want to look here and see what we have, and it still has add, right? It's still running that old MCP. So what we need to do again is we need to shut this down. So we're going to go to Task Manager. We're going to search for Claude. Okay, we're going to end the task, and then we're just going to wait a second, reboot it, and it should now run our new MCP server, and that's because it's kind of running in the background. So here now, if we look at this, you can see that we have add note. So for add note, I'm going to say, can you add a note saying Tim is the best? Okay, and let's see what it says. And it says I'll add that note for you, and then notice it's asking us to use this tool. So I'm going to allow that for the chat. This is the message. Okay, I saved the note, and then we can see kind of the result here. It said note saved. And then if we come here to PyCharm, we actually don't see the notes.txt file. And the reason for that is that it's saving relative to the location where the UV command is running, or at least where Claude is running our MCP server. So that's actually something good. We need to hard code the path where we want to save notes.txt, because right now it's kind of saving in like a random location that we don't have access to, which I just realized when we were running this. So what I'm going to do is quickly change this so it's going to be relative to where this current file is, so it saves it in this directory, so we'll be able to access it later. Okay, so I just adjusted this here. This should now make it so that it's always going to save it in the same directory where this current main.py file is. So we did os.path.join. We got the directory name of this file, so __file __, and then we have notes.txt. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to work right now. We could close this and rerun it, but let's move on to the next function, then we can test it out after that. All right, so I'm going to do this one a little bit faster. I'm going to say mcp.tool, and I want this one to be one that can read a file. So I'm going to say define read notes. Okay, this is going to return a string. I'm just going to copy in the doc string. I'll put all this code in the description. I just want to save us a little bit of time here. Then I'm going to say with, and I'm just going to go with my autocomplete because now it's so damn good. With notes file, we're going to open this in R mode, which stands for reading, so it's not going to modify the file. We're going to say content is equal to f.read, and then .strip. This is just going to remove any new line characters or white spaces at the end. Then we're going to say return content, or we're going to say no content or no notes yet. Okay, so that if we don't have any content, then we'll just return no notes yet instead. Okay, so now we have an add note and a read note, and I want to move on and add a resource. Now to add the resource, we're going to say at MCP, and this time we're going to say .resource. Now the resource is different. It's not a tool. It's more like just reading information. So in this case, we could do something like getting the most recent note. So to do that, we're going to call this notes : / and then latest. Okay, now there's ways to embed dynamic variables inside of your resource. For example, if I go back here, let me just bring this up and we look at the resource. Let me find where the resource is. We should be able to see here that you could do something like this. So you can say like users, user ID / profile, and then you can see that you can put a user ID as a parameter. We don't need to do that for our notes, but that is something you can do with the resource. Wanted to mention that. But here we're just saying, okay, you can get the notes latest resource. That's how we're referring to it. Then we're going to say get latest note. This is going to return a string. And for the latest note, again, we're going to ensure the file. We can actually just copy this because it's going to be the same thing. And this time we're going to get the read lines. Okay. We're going to call this lines. And then what we're going to do is return lines -1 dot strip. If lines, else we're going to say no notes yet. Okay, so what this is saying is, all right, we're going to get the most recent line or the last line. We're going to strip off any of the new line or white space characters. Then we're only going to do that if lines. So if this list actually has at least one value, so we don't get an index error. Otherwise, we're just going to say no notes yet. Okay, so that's a resource. And then lastly, I'm going to bring in a prompt. So I'm going to say at mcp.prompt. For the prompt, we're going to say define, and then this is going to be note _summary _prompt. Okay, if we can spell this correctly. And then this is going to be of type string. And then inside of here, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to give a prompt that will summarize all of the notes that currently exist, because that's something that we might want to do. So I'm going to say with open notes file r as f, I'm going to say content equals, and again, f.read.strip. We should really put that into a function because it's very repetitive, but for now, that's fine. We're going to say if not content, then we're going to say return, there are no notes yet. Okay, otherwise we can return an f string, and this is going to say summarize the current notes. And then inside of here, we are going to put the content. Okay, so this is just a reusable prompt that again, we can pull in from the MCP server. Now for both of these, again, I'm just going to copy in from my other monitor here a few of the doc strings to make them a bit clear. So generate a prompt asking the AI to summarize all the current notes. Okay, and then for the latest note, same thing. Now I know this example is quite simple, but you can imagine that if you had an advanced prompt with multiple values and variables and things, that you could just put that in this function, and then you can just keep reusing that prompt over and over and over again, and it can grab external data if it needs to. Same thing for the resource. Again, quite simple, but if you had a resource like a large database, you want to run a SQL query all the time or something, you could put that into a resource, and then your AI agent can continue to use that similarly to a tool. Okay, so that is our code for our MCP server. Same thing again, we need to close down Claude. So let's close this down. I need to get this thing here and press end task. And then let's rerun it and test this out and make sure that it's all working. Okay, so we can see now we have two tools available, add note and read notes. And we have this connection, and you can see that we can get the note summary prompt, or we can get notes latest, for example, and we can bring that in as kind of extra context to our prompt. So I can say, what are the notes or something, and let's see what it says. It says based on the information, there are no notes yet. Okay, totally fine. And you can see here now in PyCharm, this notes file got created. So let's make a few notes. So let's go make 10 notes on monkeys. Okay, and let's see if it uses our MCP server to do that. So let's go allow for this chat, and it has a message. It's using the add note function, and it's just going to keep doing this. And you can see behind me, notes are getting populated in this notes.txt file. So let's wait for that to finish, and then we can use the other tools. All right, so that is done. Now let's try to use maybe our prompt. So let's go to here, and let's go the note summary prompt, and let's just go enter here, and let's just use this prompt. And see, I've shared a document called note summary prompt containing 10 monkey notes I just created for you. Appears to asking for a summary of these notes. Would you like me to create a concise summary? And I'm going to say yes. Okay, so run this prompt. I'll summarize the notes about the monkeys for you. And then you can see that it's running add note. Okay, that's interesting. That's not what I wanted it to do, but what it did is it actually added a note to my notes file that contained the summary, so monkey summary. Interesting, kind of proves that I guess, you need to be a little bit more specific here. But let's say, can you get the latest note, and let's see if it will do that for us. Okay, I'll retrieve the latest notes. It's getting read note. Okay, let's do this. And let's see, okay, it gets the notes and it says monkey summary, this is the latest note, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you guys get the idea. You can mess around with this. Obviously, you don't need me just to play with this, stupid example in this video. But the point of this was to show you how to make a custom MCP server in Python and hopefully not overcomplicate the process. In my opinion, this is so damn cool because the types of things you can do with this are really just endless. Like even right now when I'm running this, I'm imagining all of the times in the past where I've needed to like manually create fake data and add that to my database. Now I could have an MCP server, I could connect that to Claude, I could say, Claude, make 100 fake users for me, and it can just do that in my database. I don't need to like manually copy and paste them or run some custom script. I just connect it to a tool that goes and does whatever I need. Now that's obviously a simple example. You can get crazy with this, but think about how cool these MCP servers actually are and really what you can do if you have a little bit of imagination. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.